Love it or hate it, AMC's The Walking Dead is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to TV horror.
For those of you who have literally been living under a rock for the last decade, The Walking Dead is an American post-apocalyptic horror television show on AMC based on a comic book series by Robert Kirkman, Tony Moore, and Charlie Adler.
The series features a bunch of people trying to survive a zombie apocalypse, with the constant threat of attacks from mindless zombies, or as they're referred to in the show, walkers. With the fall of humanity, our story follows Rick Grimes and company.
Where the hell are you, man?
Officer friendly.
Who also face conflict from the other living survivors, who have formed groups and settlements with their own sets of laws and morals, often leading to hostile conflict between the human communities.
Okay, now that we got you educated, we thought that since the show's season 10 has been on hiatus since November, that we would give you the old Gorehounds of Horror crash course on this popular zombie-riddled show, and bring you up to speed before episode 9 kicks off.
If you're new here, go ahead and murder that like button, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to Gorehounds of Horror to receive updates on when we post and when we will do our mystery box giveaway. We present to you Walking Dead Recap, Seasons 1 through 10 by the Gorehounds of Horror.
Alright, let's get into it then. Welcome to this episode of Gorehounds TV.
Warning, warning. This episode will cover a quick recap of all 10 seasons of AMC's The Walking Dead. Spoilers will be in full effect. You've been warned. The Walking Dead, Season 1 Recap.
Season 1, where it all began. The show starts out with Rick Grimes, a sheriff's deputy, waking up from a coma after being shot. He encounters a world filled with walkers and heads to Georgia to reunite with his family, his wife Lori, and his son Carl.
Along the way, he comes across Morgan and his son Dwayne, though he eventually leaves them after hearing of a refugee camp. In Georgia, he befriends Glenn, a survivor scavenging for goods, as well as Redneck Merle and T-Dog.
Jesse, come on, baby, come on!
The gang handcuff Merle and leave him stranded on a roof, but later return to find him gone with no sign of a body.
Rick finally reaches the camp, finding both Lori and Carl, as well as his best friend and former colleague, Shane, who is now also banging his wife. Rick doesn't know this at the time. The camp also includes the rest of the group that would be the core part of the first season. Daryl, which is Merle's brother, Amy and Andrea, the sisters, Morales, and Carol and Ed, along with daughter Sophia, Jim, Dale, and Jackie.
During an excursion, a group of walkers attack the camp and kill Amy and Carol's husband, Ed. The gang eventually depart for the Center for Disease Control, more commonly known by the acronym CDC, hoping a cure will be found there, though Morales goes his own way and Jim stays behind. However, the lead scientist at the CDC informs them there isn't a cure, rigs the CDC to self-destruct, and dies from suicide alongside camp member Jackie, but not before letting Rick in on some unknown knowledge about the Walker virus.
Psst! We're all infected.
The Walking Dead, Season 2 Recap.
The vast majority of Season 2 takes place on the farm of an elderly doctor named Herschel, also populated by his two daughters, Maggie and Beth. The gang head there after Carl's accidentally shot and Carol's daughter Sophia goes missing.
Otis, the man who shot Carl, is eventually left for dead by Shane while out on a hunt for supplies. Carl, meanwhile, eventually recovers from his wounds, and Lori discovers she is pregnant.
Glenn starts a relationship with Maggie, although a late-night meetup eventually turns sour after Glenn discovers Herschel's barn is filled with captive walkers.
Eventually, the group of survivors decide to open the barn, Inside, they find Carol and Ed's daughter, Sophia, but she's long since passed and turned into a walker. Rick then kills her reanimated corpse.
Totally upset, Herschel goes to a nearby bar but is attacked by a gang. Rick and Shane make the save to haul one member, Randall, back to the farm. Despite debating over his fate, Shane decides to take initiative and secretly kills him. A large group of walkers also descends on the farm. One kills Dale after Carl fails to use it for shooting practice.
Finally, Rick kills Shane after it's clear that Shane is becoming more frenzied. Walkers invade the farm, and Rick relays the CDC scientists' warning that everyone who dies will turn into a walker. The group all escape, excluding Andrea, who is split from the group and rescued by a mysterious woman, later to be revealed as Michonne.
The Walking Dead, Season 3 recap.
Season 3 kicks off 8 months after Season 2 ends, with Rick and the survivors taking back a prison from the walkers to use as their new home. Lori, meanwhile, is heavily pregnant with their second child, which personally I think is actually Shane's kid, but whatever.
During the battle for the prison, Herschel is bitten on the leg and has it amputated to avoid turning into a walker. The remaining prisoners are, ironically, held captive by the group in a different wing of the building.
Andrea and Michonne are taken by Merle, who now aligns with the community of Woodbury and their leader, the governor.
Back at the prison, walkers are lured in by alarms, and then all hell breaks loose. T-Dog is killed trying to save Carol, while Lori gives birth to a daughter, Judith, and Carl is forced to mercifully kill his own mother.
Where is she?
No, Rick, no.
Oh, no. No.
Michonne leaves Woodbury, and after Merle captures Glenn and Maggie, takes some much-needed supplies to a depleted prison. After recuperating, everyone heads back to Woodbury to take back Glenn and Maggie, and Michonne stabs the governor in the eye.
The second half of the season sees Woodbury eventually liberated by the governor's control, but not without casualties. Merle is killed thanks to the governor, as is Andrea, who secretly worked against him. The remaining Woodbury residents, siblings Sasha and Tyrese, are invited into Rick's ragtag group of survivors.
The Walking Dead, Season 4 recap.
Things at the prison soon spiral out of control thanks to a disease spread by the livestock on the grounds. The group are forced to make some tough decisions, including quarantining the infected. 2 of those with the disease, David and Tyrese's girlfriend Karen, are murdered. The culprit is later revealed to be Carol.
The governor also strikes back at the prison and encounters the Chandler family, Lily, Tara, and Megan. He kidnaps Michonne and Herschel, executing the latter and starting an all-out war at the prison.
I know. We all can change.
The governor is eventually defeated and killed by Lily, while the original group of survivors fracture and go their separate ways in the chaos. With Judith being taken in by Carol and Tyrese.
One large group begins to form. consisting of Daryl, Beth, Carol, Tyrese, Judith, sisters Lizzie and Micah, Sasha, Bob, and Maggie, while Glenn meets Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene, who are on their way to Washington, D.C., while Rick, Michonne, and Carol hunt for the remaining members of the group.
All roads, though, lead to Terminus, a promising new community. Along the way, Carol is forced to kill Lizzie after she kills her sister. And Beth is also captured by a mysterious set of strangers. Everyone, excluding Carol's group, is eventually captured at Terminus. Though Rick ends the season with a rallying cry, banding together the new ensemble, featuring those that Glenn found, the surviving members of the prison, and Tara.
The Walking Dead, Season 5 Recap.
The first half of Season 5 deals with the recovery of Beth, who is found working under the watchful eye of Dawn, a crazed police officer turned hospital leader. This all comes after a badass opening episode which sees Carol dispatch much of Terminus, while also rescuing the group.
Rick meets Father Gabriel, who consigned much of his parish to their eventual deaths in the wake of the Walker outbreak. While there, the ex-leader of Terminus, Gareth, leads his remaining group to attack and kill Bob.
Later, attempts to rescue Beth include Carol being wheeled into the hospital after an accident, though it ends in tragedy after Beth stabs Dawn and Dawn in turn kills Beth. Sasha's brother Tyrese also dies during a trip to rescue hospital workers Noah's family.
After Eugene lies about having a cure, the group divert their attention to the walled community of Alexandria after they are invited by one of its residents, Aaron. Things eventually descend into paranoia, aimed at the new members of Alexandria, with one Alexandrian, Pete, becoming jealous over Rick's attention towards his wife. Despite initial protests against his hardened attitude, the Alexandrians and their leader Deanna eventually warm towards Rick, who is forced to kill Pete after he accidentally stabs Deanna's husband Reg.
The season ends with the wolves on the outskirts of Alexandria and Morgan returning after brief appearances in the pilot and Season 3.
The Walking Dead, Season 6 Recap.
The wolves attack Alexandria after an attempt to divert a large group of walkers at a nearby quarry goes wrong under Rick's leadership. The group is eventually defeated with only one member, Owen, being captured.
A flashback episode fills in Morgan's adventures since we last saw him. He's now a pacifist refusing to kill.
The leader of Alexandria, Deanna, is bitten by a walker and dies, while Alexandria is completely overrun by walkers. The undead are eventually beaten back, but Carl is shot in the eye by Ron, an Alexandrian trying to escape with his family.
Early on in the season, Maggie also reveals she is pregnant with Glenn's child. After the wolves have been dispatched, a new group emerges, the Saviors. They continually take Alexandria's supplies, which forces the town, now led by Rick, to broker a deal with the Hilltop.
Carol and Maggie are kidnapped by the Saviors, but eventually escape, while Alexandria's doctor, Denise, is also killed by prominent member Dwight.
Carol ends up leaving Alexandria, but is pursued by the Saviors. She is eventually rescued by Morgan and taken in by a new community.
Elsewhere, Negan makes his mark. The leader of the Saviors introduces himself by intercepting the survivors en route to the hilltop to help a heavily pregnant Maggie. The season ends with Negan killing an unseen member of the group with his barbed wire baseball bat, Lucille.
The Walking Dead, Season 7 recap.
The Season 6 cliffhanger is revealed. Negan kills Abraham as well as Glenn.
Anybody moves, anybody says anything, cut the boy's other eye out, feed it to his father, and then we'll start.
Daryl's also brought in and held captive by the Saviors. The people who took Carol and Morgan are also revealed. The Kingdom, led by the eccentric Ezekiel who keeps a tiger as a pet.
Another group is introduced. After Tara is swept away on a supply run gone wrong, she ends up at Oceanside, an all-female community.
The Saviors continue to make those at Hilltop and Alexandria live in fear, including killing Dr. Olivia, while Daryl eventually escapes from his confinement. During the mid-season finale, Negan takes Eugene and also stabs Spencer, Deanna's son, which eventually drives Rick to bring the fight to the Saviors.
Rick's group joins forces with the Kingdom and also encounters the Scavengers, led by Jadis, a group that has no stake in the oncoming war. Jadis tells Rick to bring her group guns so they can help fight it against the Saviors. Negan's right-hand man, Dwight, also wants to turn against his leader.
The season ends in a standoff at Alexandria, with Sasha committing suicide inside of a coffin with the aim being to kill Negan as a zombie, although she fails thanks to the Scavengers aligning with the Saviors. The Hilltop and the Kingdom eventually ride to Alexandria's rescue, while Negan retreats.
The Walking Dead, Season 8 recap.
Season 8 steps up the conflict between the Saviors and the remaining communities. Sanctuary, the Saviors' home base, is attacked and overrun with walkers early on in the season. The group hit back by massacring several members of the Kingdom and Ezekiel's tiger, Shiva.
In a blast from the past, Morales, the dude from way back in Season 1, returns as a member of the Saviors, though he is swiftly dispatched by Daryl. Eugene also works on the side of the Saviors early in Season 8, although he works out a plan to turn against them later.
Maggie's group encounters Georgie, who makes a quick stop at the hilltop to promise them plans and essential knowledge for a near future.
A new member joins the group, the Dr. Sadiq. He is there while Carl gets bitten by a walker during the journey to Alexandria. Carl later kills himself instead of turning, but not before writing letters to his friends and family, including Negan, reminding them of the good in the world.
Negan, meanwhile, has internal conflict to deal with. His trusted lieutenant, Simon, massacres every scavenger except Jadis, despite this going against Negan's orders.
At the now reclaimed sanctuary, and with a blinded sick Gabriel following behind, Negan kills Simon, but Dwight's newfound alliance with Rick is discovered, forcing him to leave for good. This greatly reduces Negan's might, and the final blow comes from when the Saviors' attempt to kill Rick blows up in their face and Eugene sabotages their ammo.
Rick finally defeats Negan in a one-on-one fight and slices his neck. He lets Negan live after remembering Carl's parting words of forgiveness.
The Walking Dead, Season 9 recap.
The Walking Dead Season 9 follows on from the aftermath of Negan's defeat and concerns the insubordination of both the Saviors and the Hilltop's former leader, Gregory, who bowed to Negan's demands in the past. Gregory is swiftly dealt with, executed by new leader and now mother to baby Herschel, Maggie. While some of the Saviors clash with Rick's group, and a handful are even taken back to Oceanside, which leads to a full-scale revolt. There are more hopeful developments, however, as Carol and Ezekiel's relationships blossom.
During the riot, Rick's attempts to redirect a herd of oncoming walkers leads him falling off his horse and being seriously wounded. In a last act of sacrifice, he blows up the then just finished bridge to stop the walkers encroaching on any communities. He appears to die in the eyes of Daryl, but is miraculously rescued by Anne, the former Jadis, who has been in the leagues with a new group, who takes him away on a helicopter.
After Rick's apparent death, a 6-year time jump takes place, and in the interim, Maggie leaves Hilltop to join Georgie's group. Rick, or Shane's daughter, Judith, now forms a key part in the Outreach Project. One such group, Magna, Yumiko, Luke, and Connie, are eventually taken in, despite Michonne's distrust of outsiders, as shown by her scar. One we come to learn was a result of believing the intentions of a woman with a group of children. Michonne had to massacre the children to escape, as shown in a flashback episode.
Finally, the Whisperers enter the picture, led by Alpha, the group of Walker-skinned adversaries. After her daughter Lydia is taken in by the Hilltop, Alpha strikes back at the fair, which was originally designed to reconnect the Kingdom, Hilltop, and Alexandria. The Whisperers kill several, including Carol and Ezekiel's adoptive son Henry, Tara, and Enid, and the Kingdom falls.
The season ends with a mysterious voice being heard over the radio.
The Walking Dead, Season 10 Recap.
The season starts with the Whisperers and the survivors keeping away from each other. Something abruptly changes after a Russian satellite comes crashing down to the Earth within the Whisperers' boundaries. Alpha takes issue with the survivors heading into her land to extinguish the flames from the crashed satellite and demands more land from them.
Ezekiel attempts to commit suicide, but is stopped by Michonne. He later reveals to Sadiq that he has thyroid cancer.
Following a Walker attack on Alexandria, Negan, back in prison for committing manslaughter to save Lydia, goes missing. He later bumps into Brandon, a former savior who kills a mother and child to impress Negan. In turn, Negan kills Brandon and is then captured by Beta after walking into the Whisperer territory. Beta then tests Negan, who manages to pass and seemingly aligns with Alpha.
Alpha has been telling the other Whisperers that she had killed her daughter Lydia, which is a lie. Carol and Daryl head out to destroy Alpha's Walker horde, and instead capture a Whisperer. They soon realize that their prisoner believes that Lydia is dead. Carol vows to reveal the truth to the Whisperers. Meanwhile, the captured Whisperer is killed by Dante, who Sadiq soon realizes is actually a Whisperer spy. Dante strangles Sadiq, but once his true identity is revealed, he is imprisoned and Gabriel kills him in his cell.
Do we deserve a second chance? I don't know. But sometimes we get one anyway.
Around the same time, Michonne, Judith, and Luke travel to Oceanside and meet Virgil, who agrees to show them a valuable weapons cache in return for safe passage back to his family.
Carol and Daryl once again go looking for Alpha's horde, this time with Aaron, Magna, Connie, Kelly, and Jerry. Carol spots Alpha and takes off after her, luring them all into a cave where they are surrounded by the Whisperer's horde. Okay guys, now you're all Walking Dead experts, or at least something close to it. Thanks for watching another horrifying episode of Gorehounds TV. We would love to hear what you thought in the comments down below. We have some Gorehounds merch coming out soon. We have this badass shirt in the works by our good friend Willis down at Little Monsters Printing. Make sure to check out our Facebook group and our Instagram for more info as we get closer to that. And remember, all the links to all sorts of stuff we mentioned in this episode, like where to pick up Walking Dead merch, our social media info, and even Willis's address at Little Monsters Printing.
As always, Hounds, thanks again for joining us while we spoiled the shit out of The Walking Dead for ya. See you next Thursday.